The first thing Karen Dunmore heard after slamming her SUV door was a loud, wet, judgmental snort. She turned, expecting a jogger maybe, or a cyclist with strong opinions about emissions. But what greeted her was not human. It was a horse. 3, in fact. Huge, muscular beasts standing in a neat line, their riders wearing mirrored sunglasses and wide-brimmed hats like they'd galloped straight off a Wild West movie set and into her Saturday morning crusade. Karen blinked. Her protest sign was still only half finished, its glitter letters spelling Jew-S flapping in the breeze. The live stream was already rolling, camera angled just right from her SUV's dash to catch her good side. The irony hadn't hit her yet, but the horse had. One of them sneezed, a violent, snot-loaded eruption that painted her pristine white Gucci blouse in a sticky coat of equine disrespect. "This is assault!" she shrieked, stepping back and tripping slightly over her yoga mat. Her voice echoed across the quiet trailhead, the only other sound a bird chirping somewhere in the distance, probably laughing. It all started at 9:03 a.m. when Karen, dressed in a meticulously coordinated lavender yoga outfit, steered her sparkling 2025 Range Rover diagonally across the entrance of Sunny Hollow Trail. She parked it squarely on the dirt path, blocking it completely. The trail, beloved by locals for horseback riding, was marked clearly with a wooden sign. Equestrian use only. No bicycles, no joggers, no strollers. Karen had read the sign, then she'd read it again. Then she'd declared it discriminatory. She stepped out, raised her phone to selfie angle and announced, "Today, we take a stand. No more trail privilege. No more saddle supremacy. This land belongs to all of us." In the passenger seat, her teenage daughter Amy slouched lower, phone in hand, streaming live to an audience that had already grown into the hundreds. Amy didn't speak. She'd learned long ago that protesting her mother's decisions was like trying to explain gluten to a cat. A few cars slowed, a couple of curious cyclists hovered nearby, and soon riders on horseback arrived, expecting a peaceful morning trot, and instead finding a Range Rover where their trail should be. Karen met them with pamphlets, laminated ones, titled "Trail Justice, a Manifesto." She handed them out like someone giving directions to a bathroom during an earthquake. No one asked for them. Then came the sheriffs. Deputy Clint Riggins wasn't in the mood. He hadn't had breakfast. His horse, Marley, was cranky. And now there was a Range Rover parked like it owned the wilderness. He dismounted slowly, boots crunching gravel, and approached Karen, who looked like a suburban general guarding the last Wi-Fi hotspot in a natural disaster. "Ma'am," Clint said, "you're obstructing a state-maintained trail." Karen straightened. "I'm exercising my constitutional right to peaceful protest, and I pay taxes. A lot of them." "That doesn't make you the queen of dirt roads," Clint muttered, already regretting not calling in sick. Behind him, Marley snorted again, this time with even more judgment. Amy's camera caught it all. She'd zoomed in on the mucus-stained blouse earlier, and the comments were flying. "She gonna sue the horse? This is better than Netflix." The standoff had officially begun. Karen stood in front of her car like it was the Lincoln Memorial, and she was giving the speech of a generation. Clint stood with his arms crossed, chewing sunflower seeds, regretting his career choices. Amy, ever the quiet chronicler of chaos, kept the live stream going with the occasional deadpan commentary. Day 457 of Mom's personal civil war. More riders arrived. A toddler on a pony asked loudly, "Is that lady okay?" Karen didn't hear him. She was too busy issuing a citizen citation. Not to a person, to the horse. "This animal," she declared to her phone camera, "is guilty of reckless sneezing and public flatulence." Clint blinked. Marley blinked. Amy nearly dropped the phone from laughing. Karen pulled out a clipboard she had somehow prepared in advance and scribbled a violation. She held it up triumphantly the way people hold up championship belts. "Ma'am," Clint said, sighing. "Oh, Hong Kong. Do you want us to ride her along to the station to file that officially?" Karen stared. She wasn't sure if he was joking. She declined, but not before launching into a 5-minute speech about the mounted oppressors, a phrase that would later become a viral TikTok soundbite. Amy's live stream was now trending. The comments ranged from iconic chaos to "this is why aliens won't visit." Then Amy reached into the glove box looking for tissues to wipe off horse snot, and found something strange. An envelope, yellowed with age. Labeled in shaky handwriting, "Do not open, property deed, Rusty." Amy narrowed her eyes. She didn't know any Rusty, and more importantly, why did her mom have someone else's property deed? "What's this?" Amy asked aloud, showing the envelope to the camera, then turning it toward her mom. Karen's face changed. Not anger, not confusion. Fear. Real, immediate fear. The kind you don't fake. "Put that back," she snapped too quickly. "It's nothing. Old paperwork. Doesn't matter." But it did. Amy knew that voice, that tone. It was the same one her mom used when caught returning worn shoes or arguing Yelp reviews with the threat of legal action. The envelope mattered. And now, 30,000 people watching live agreed. Clint noticed the sudden shift in mood. He walked closer, eyes on the envelope. "Everything all right?" Karen tucked it away, flashing a smile too wide. "Perfectly fine, officer. Just another day standing up for justice." "Funny," Clint said. "You don't strike me as someone who usually stands. Mostly seems like you sit in meetings, on boards, on people." Amy choked on a laugh. Karen didn't flinch. The sun rose higher, the Range Rover continued blocking state land. The horses waited patiently, trained to endure longer standoffs than this. But something had changed. Not just in the live stream, not just in Karen's carefully controlled narrative. Something had cracked. And for the first time that day, Amy wasn't just watching, she was ready to act. Amy didn't say a word as she walked away from the trail. She told her mom she needed better reception. That was partly true. Her phone had been buzzing nonstop. Notifications, reactions, one journalist request, and at least 5 conspiracy theorists asking if the sneeze was staged. But her eyes stayed fixed on the envelope now tucked inside her hoodie. "Do not open, property deed, Rusty." The handwriting was old, wobbly. The kind of shaky script that didn't come from a printer, but from hands that had seen too much. She hadn't recognized the name, but she'd recognized her mom's reaction. That frozen second panic, that fake calm tone that only came out when Karen was covering something up. She didn't know where she was going exactly, but the name Rusty had something familiar about it. Karen had once mentioned someone by that name while yelling at a town council meeting over streetlight wattage. Something about the paranoid hermit in the woods who thinks the trail is cursed. Amy had laughed back then. She wasn't laughing now. The road turned to gravel, then to dirt. Her phone lost signal. The forest thickened around her like it had secrets of its own. The GPS had already given up, but her feet didn't. She followed the trail like her bones knew the way. Then, just beyond a sagging wire fence and a crooked mailbox that said R. Stone, she saw it. A cabin, or rather a shed with delusions of grandeur. The porch leaned so far left it looked like it was bowing to the trees. The chimney puffed like it had emphysema. Pine needles blanketed the roof like an old man's hair. She stepped onto the creaky wood, raised her hand to knock. The door opened before her knuckles touched. "You're her girl," the man said. Amy froze. He was tall, wiry, skin like worn leather. A scar running from temple to hairline like a lightning bolt had tried and failed to split him open. His flannel shirt hung half-buttoned. His boots looked older than the mailbox. And his eyes, despite everything, were clear. Alert, like he'd been waiting. Amy held up the envelope. "You're Rusty?" He nodded once and stepped back. "Come in." The inside of the cabin smelled like pine, tobacco, and old stories. Faded photos lined the shelves, none framed. A kettle hissed on the stove, just slightly, like it didn't want to interrupt. Amy stepped over a stack of newspapers from 1989 and sat carefully on a wooden chair that probably predated the internet. Rusty didn't say anything. He simply walked over to a small trapdoor under the fireplace, knelt, and pried it open. A thin envelope came out, dusty, yellowed. He held it up. On the back was scrawled, "Don't let her find the box." He handed it to her without a word. Amy opened it slowly. Inside, a photograph. A woman, young, beautiful, dark hair in a loose bun, holding a baby. Next to her stood a man in a sheriff's uniform, face familiar even in his youth. She blinked. The woman was her grandmother. But the baby wasn't labeled. And the man in uniform? "Rusty." "That's you," Amy whispered. Rusty nodded. "That baby. Is that my mom?" Rusty didn't answer right away. He poured something into 2 chipped mugs and handed her one. "It's tea," he said. Amy took a sip. It wasn't. "She's after it," Rusty finally said. "The box." Amy nodded. "What's in it?" Rusty leaned back in his chair. The wood creaked like it had stories too. Things this town would pay good money to keep buried. Deeds, letters, photos. Few gold coins if memory serves. But that ain't the real danger. Amy raised an eyebrow. "The danger," he said, "is what your mom's willing to do to make sure it stays buried." Rusty told her everything. About the land deals, the bribes, the cover-ups. About how Sunny Hollow Trail used to be part of a privately owned estate. One that got passed down wrong. Or stolen, or both. He told her about her grandfather, not the man on Karen's family tree, but the man in the photo. Rusty. "He was a good man for a while," Rusty muttered, eyes foggy. Then the money started showing up. No one asked where it came from, as long as it kept coming. Karen had always believed her father was a hero, a land developer, a businessman. She didn't know about the quiet deals in back rooms, or the letters signed in secret, or the families pushed off land they'd lived on for generations. Amy listened, phone silent in her pocket, hands curled around the mug. Rusty leaned forward. "She's not fighting for access to that trail, kid. She's fighting to erase the truth. And she's willing to go viral if that's what it takes." Amy looked down at the photo again. Her grandmother's soft face, the baby in her arms. "What does my mom really want?" she asked. Rusty didn't blink. "Control." Outside, the wind picked up. The woods whispered in dry voices. Somewhere in the distance, a horse neighed once, like it was remembering something. Amy stood, still gripping the envelope. "Where's the box?" Rusty gave her a long, sad look, then pointed to the shed out back. "Locked up in there, but you're not the only one who knows now, and she's already digging." Amy blinked. "You think she knows where it is?" "She doesn't," Rusty said, "but that won't stop her. She'll tear up half the trail to find it, because that box doesn't just hold the past, it holds her future." Amy stepped outside. The sun was lower now, the trees casting long shadows. She texted one person, Clint. "We need to talk. Meet me behind Rusty's cabin. It's bigger than you think." Then she pocketed her phone and stared out at the trees where secrets were buried under roots, under leaves, under lies. And somewhere out there, Karen was already on her way. With a shovel. Clint's horse trotted slowly along the narrow path behind Rusty's cabin. It was quiet, too quiet for a sheriff with this much caffeine in his system. The last time he'd been out here was years ago, chasing down a rumor about trail money being laundered through fake maintenance budgets. He'd dismissed it back then. Rusty had a reputation for wild claims and dirt-stained manifestos. But now, Amy Dunmore was involved, and Amy wasn't a conspiracy theorist. She was a teenager with a TikTok following and zero tolerance for her mother's nonsense. That made her dangerous. Clint dismounted. Amy stood by the rusted shed behind the cabin, hoodie up, face grim. "She's already looking for it," Amy said without hello. Clint nodded once. The box. Rusty emerged from the shadows like a plot twist. He held a crowbar in a tired expression. "She doesn't know where it is," he said, "but she knows it's real." He handed the crowbar to Clint. "It's locked." Clint looked at the padlock. It wasn't fancy, just old. Like everything else in this town, he jammed the crowbar in, gave it one hard push. Crack! The lock broke. The door groaned open, complaining like it hadn't been touched in years. Inside, it smelled of wood, earth, and memory. In the center, a trunk, heavy, wrapped in cloth, tied with rope. They dragged it out slowly. Amy filmed the whole thing, hands shaking but steady enough. The live stream was back. Signal weak, but just enough. A few thousand people had already joined. The comment section was wild. "Is this a horror movie or a land dispute? Supposed to be gold inside. I need this. Where is the horse?" Clint opened the trunk. Silence. Inside, yellow documents, brittle property deeds, letters sealed in plastic, black and white photographs, bank slips, maps, official stamps from decades past. And at the bottom, a small velvet pouch. It jingled when Rusty lifted it. Coins. Gold. Amy's breath caught. "This is enough," she whispered. "This changes everything." Clint was already flipping through the papers, eyes scanning like he was decoding a confession. Names leapt out, familiar names, politicians, developers, Karen's late father, even the town's current mayor. "These are originals," Clint said. "Unfiled, unreported. These aren't copies, these are the real thing." Amy nodded. "That trail isn't just a trail, is it?" Rusty sighed. "No, kid. It's the line they all crossed and buried." Clint picked up one document with a shaking hand. It was signed by a mayor from the 1980s, a deal approving the temporary redirection of land ownership in exchange for campaign contributions. Another letter, a map of Whispering Pines with X's drawn through public zones, marked convertible. "This is organized," Clint said, voice low. "Not mistakes, not negligence. This is fraud." Amy sat down, stunned. Her mom, Karen Dunmore, had always acted like she ran the town. Turns out she almost did, but it was built on lies. Rusty lit a cigarette and leaned against the shed. "You gonna tell her?" Amy looked at her phone. 1,000 new viewers had joined. She hit end stream. "No," she said, "I'm gonna show her." Back at the trail, Karen had reached a new level of ridiculous. She was now standing on top of her Range Rover, waving a megaphone she'd borrowed from the community center, and delivering what she called the trail address. "This is about democracy, about liberty, about land that belongs to the people." Behind her, a horse urinated loudly, a perfect punctuation mark. Amy watched from the tree line, phone back in her hoodie, expression unreadable. Karen was still talking when her phone buzzed. A screenshot from Amy. It was the box. Open. Karen's face froze mid-rant, then shifted, then froze again. The mask was slipping. She climbed off the SUV without finishing her speech. Got in the car, locked the door. Amy watched her mother sit still for the first time all day, and that's when she knew. Karen wasn't just afraid of losing control. She was afraid of truth. Because this time, it wasn't buried anymore. Karen didn't sleep that night. She sat in her SUV, parked half off the trail like a sunburned monument to entitlement. Her blouse was wrinkled, her voice hoarse, her carefully curated image of trail defender and suburban savior was crumbling. And somewhere out there, her daughter, her own daughter, was the one cracking it open. At 2:17 a.m., she made a decision. She put on her old tennis shoes, tied her hair back, and grabbed a shovel. She drove in silence to mile marker 7, a quiet bend in the trail where the land dipped and curved like it was trying to hide something. Karen had remembered Rusty ranting about this place years ago, something about unmarked ground and history buried under horse tracks. Now, in the dead of night, she stepped into the trees with a headlamp strapped to her forehead like a miner of scandal. No one saw her except the trail cam. It clicked on as she began to dig. Shovel after shovel of dirt, sweat dripping, breath ragged. She mumbled to herself about injustice, about Amy, about betrayal, about the internet. She didn't find the box. She wasn't supposed to. It had already been moved. But what she did find was something else. An old town marker, buried, broken. She'd just committed vandalism of public property, and the camera caught it all. By sunrise, Clint had the footage. He watched it in silence, jaw tightening as Karen flailed through her excavation like a determined raccoon in Gucci socks. Amy sat beside him, hoodie up, still processing. "She really went out there with a shovel," she said, almost impressed. "She tried to dig up the past," Clint replied, "and now the past's about to bury her." He picked up the folder of documents from the box. It wasn't just Karen's problem anymore. It was the town's. That afternoon, Clint filed a report and handed the documents to the county investigator. Rusty gave a statement that was half poetry, half testimony. "The dirt remembers," he'd said, "and so does the paper." Amy said little. Her phone was still buzzing. Her live stream clip had been clipped, stitched, remixed into memes. One had a horse dancing over Karen's speech. Back at the trail, Karen was staging a comeback. She returned after a salon trip, her hair aggressively blow-dried into battle mode. She wore a new blouse and carried a larger sign, "Trail Truth Now." She stood on a folding chair and shouted, "They're coming for your land! For your rights, they already have my daughter. That's when Clint arrived, on horseback, again, with 2 deputies behind him. Karen spotted them and smiled the way people do when they've practiced it in the mirror. My daughter, she yelled, has been manipulated by rogue sheriffs and false prophets. Amy stepped forward, calm, cold. You broke into public land to dig up stolen property, Mom. Karen faltered. You have no idea what's going on. Clint dismounted, slowly. Actually, we do. He held up a warrant. You're under investigation for trespassing, destruction of municipal markers, and possible conspiracy to commit fraud. Karen's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Then she raised her wrists, dramatically. I hope you're ready for what happens next. Karen Dunmore, once queen of HOA board meetings and avocado latte rants, was loaded into a police SUV. Not screaming, not crying, smiling. Because deep down, she still believed she'd spin this into something bigger. That this wasn't the end, that the story was still hers. Amy stood nearby, watching the dust settle. Next to her, Clint removed his hat and muttered, You think she's done? Amy shrugged. Not even close. And somewhere in the shadows of Whispering Pines, a horse sneezed again, as if to say, Here we go. Morning in Whispering Pines came with feet and too many questions. At the sheriff's office, Clint sat with the box open in front of him, its contents spread across a conference table like a crime scene of forgotten history. Old deeds, signed letters, campaign donations that weren't donations, agreements typed on town letterhead that sounded like legalese but read like blackmail. Amy sat across from him, silent, hoodie up, hair messy. She hadn't gone home. She didn't want to. Not yet. Karen was still in holding. She'd refused the public defender, demanding instead her personal lawyer from Santa Barbara, the kind who specialized in media optics and narrative architecture, whatever that meant. Behind closed doors, her voice had been rising and falling all morning, not tears, performance. Clint slid a report across the table. Thick, unignorable. This is enough to launch a full inquiry. The mayor's going to have to answer questions. Might even resign. Amy nodded. And my mom? Clint paused. If she cooperates, maybe she avoids prison. If she tries to fight it like she's starring in a courtroom drama, she might bring the whole house down. Amy leaned back. She always said life's unfair, that if you want something, you better take it before someone else does. And what do you think now? Clint asked. Amy thought for a long moment, then said quietly, I think she built a throne out of lies and sat there so long she forgot it was made of cardboard. Clint didn't smile, he just stood. Let's see if the mayor's ready to face the music. Mayor Lila Hernandez arrived just after lunch, heels sharp, sunglasses sharper. She walked into the holding area like a woman entering a boardroom, not to apologize but to negotiate. Karen didn't look up from her copy of the report. So, Karen said, flipping a page, you finally showed. Lila crossed her arms. You detonated a landmine under this town? Karen smiled. I revealed the truth. You're welcome. You could have come to me, but then I wouldn't be trending. A pause, Lila stepped closer. If I resign, it creates a power vacuum. The same people who built this mess crawl back in wearing new suits and new smile. Karen leaned back, calculating. Then don't resign. Make a show. Burn it all down. Clean house. Let them watch you rise from the ashes. Whispering Pines loves a redemption arc. You're asking me to use your disaster for momentum. I'm offering you the mic. Outside the room, Clint listened. Amy leaned against the wall, arms crossed, heart beating too fast. Her mom wasn't just surviving. She was rewriting the script. Again. The press conference happened that evening. Fast, efficient, unavoidable. Cameras rolled. Reporters gathered. Residents whispered. Horses inexplicably stood behind the barriers, because even they knew they were part of this now. Mayor Hernandez took the podium. She admitted failures and oversight. She called the documents deeply troubling. She said words like accountability and transparency like they had weight again. Then she introduced Karen Dunmore. Gasps, murmurs. One guy dropped his coffee. Karen walked up. No sunglasses, no SUV, no designer drama. Just a pale green blouse, dusty boots, and a microphone. I've made mistakes, she began. Her voice didn't tremble. Big ones. I blocked a trail. I lied about why. I pushed a narrative that served me and ignored the truth underneath. And that's ironic, because that's where truth always lives, underneath. Silence. She let it hang. I'm not innocent, but I'm also not the only one who got comfortable thinking history would never come knocking. She looked out at the crowd, at Clint, at Amy. I've agreed to cooperate. I'll testify. I'll help identify everyone involved. She held up a small wooden sign. I've asked for one thing in return, that we build something real on that trail. A monument, a board, something to remind us that the ground we walk on has stories. Applause, not wild, but real. The middle ground, the place Karen had always ignored. Maybe now, she understood it. The next morning, Whispering Pines held its first ever Trail Day festival. The air smelled like funnel cakes and cautious optimism. Kids rode ponies. Locals sipped lemonade and pretended their town hadn't been a historical crime scene 48 hours earlier. At mile marker 7, a brand new wooden sign stood tall, "Truth beneath our feet." Beneath it, an open panel explaining the trail's real history with maps and photos and quotes from the uncovered documents. No sugarcoating, no fiction. Clint led a slow parade of mounted deputies, no longer symbols of conflict, but peacekeepers. Rusty sat on a hay bale like a philosopher king, nodding at every child who passed. Amy handed out brochures, her hoodie replaced by a sun hat. She smiled. Rare, but real. Karen arrived late. She wore dusty boots, an oversized straw hat, and an expression halfway between humility and media training. She didn't speak, not this time. She walked the trail quietly, took a brochure, looked at the sign, then a small boy tugged her sleeve. "Are you the weird internet lady?" Karen blinked. "Unfortunately, Maz." He handed her a sticker. It said, "Horse law is real." Karen laughed, really laughed. She stuck the sticker on her boot. Then she walked on, the dust of Whispering Pines clinging to her heels. And just like that, the trail was clear.